So I'm Per Buer, and I'm here to tell you about operating systems and why we don't need them anymore. Well, that's sort of a pointed argument. It's not really what I wanted to say. I want to sort of point out a really sort of fundamental flaw with the systems that we're using. In my experience, it's so fundamental that we're not really aware of it. So there are really, really serious issues with the way things are designed. Let me tell you why. This was what computers were like in the 50s. You would take your code, it would be run in sort of a batch fashion, and by the end of the night, you would be done computing. However, they were expensive, and you couldn't have one under your desk. That's why in the 70s, we had time-sharing systems. So Unix was born, and it was glorious, because you could now have like one computer being shared by 20 people. Great. There were a few assumptions that were made, and those were that the hardware would vary. We would have multiple users on a single compute system. The system itself is rather expensive, and it would live on forever. Like servers would live for 5 or 10 years. So if you fast track to today, that's no longer true. Hardware is virtually the same, virtually, like being the key point here. Nobody uses Unix users anymore for their applications. Like all your systems have one user, and it's called www data. The costs are gone. Yeah. So, and there's also this really fundamental flaw with Linux. We keep patching it all the time, and it's because it has this Achilles heel. Linux's Achilles heel, it's its ability to reconfigure itself. It can alter itself. And to sort of show you why this is sort of a thing I don't like, you all have Linux routers at home. And if there's a bug there, and if I can exploit that bug, I can make that system do anything. Absolutely anything. It can sniff your network, it could mine bitcoins. There's no limit to what that system can do, because it has the ability to modify itself. Okay, so that was just a few things. So what we're supposed to do, what's our proposed solutions for at least some of these? And the operating system designs are called unikernels. So unikernels are basically what we call library operating systems. So we've written a library of operating systems functionality. So send packet is a library call. And when we build your application, what we do is inject those library calls into the application itself. So now your application is completely standalone. It knows how to deal with Ethernet cards. It knows how to manage memory. It has an IP stack. And it just boots on a VM without anything beneath it. So your application looks something like this. There's your application code, there's your operating system, and it's all sort of just one big image. Oh, it's not actually that big. It's usually actually quite small. Technically, what we do is we replace system calls with function calls. Yeah, that's better. So that instead of calling out an operating system, it's just a library call. This has a few sort of performance impact as well, as we no longer have to do a complete context switch whenever we need to invoke the operating system. So we run quite fast. So what we've built with this to date is a few sort of networking functions, like firewalls and load balancers. Yes. The system itself is written in C++. So currently, if you take your C++ application, it should just compile. We're working on adding other runtimes. Yeah, this is just a graph. The yellow one there is Linux. The red one is include OS. It's how they deal with firewall rules and throughput. So we're quite fast because of the way that we execute code. These are our current platforms that we support. Notably, sort of ARM will be a project for next year, mostly for bare metal purposes. Other than that, we can typically run on anything. And we're not here to really kill off Linux. We basically believe that Linux is not the answer to everything out there. There are a room for other things as well, which are built on other design principles. So I encourage you to check out includeos.org. Play around with it. It's a really fun system to play around with because it's so vastly different. I'm Perbu at Twitter, so if you want to sort of come and say hi, I love to talk about this thing. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.